Greetings everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. My name is Dr. K. Narayan, and I'm the founder of Children of Infinity, a community dedicated to raising the planetary consciousness. Before diving into the workshop, allow me a few minutes to talk about my journey and why I created this community. My spiritual journey began about 26 years ago when I came across books about enlightened beings in India. Back then, I was just a kid, but I started meditating daily and reading all I could about the nature of reality and higher consciousness. I studied physics in college and eventually got a PhD in quantum mechanics in 2010. Since then, I have been working on creating a model of spirituality that's based on science, not religion. To me, spirituality is not merely a philosophy, but the foundational belief system that drives both individuals and the civilization. Like most of you, I'm concerned about where we are headed as a civilization. Although we are living in the age of unprecedented material abundance, we suffer from deep-rooted problems of unhappiness, lack of meaning, isolation, disharmony, and conflict. The root cause of our problems is low consciousness, because of which all we do is distract ourselves with the meaningless pursuit of consumption, accumulation, and control. If we continue on this path of low consciousness, we will eventually destroy ourselves. To overcome this darkness, we need light workers, people who are committed to cultivating their inner light and sharing it with others. When a sufficient number of people reach higher consciousness, the collective will automatically achieve peace and harmony. My mission is to support light workers, and that's why I created Children of Infinity. It's a community that offers free tools to align people with purpose, joy, and service. Over the past few years, as I have created different programs to empower people, I gained a key insight. Giving people knowledge is not sufficient. What people need is a step-by-step process, like a manual. That's why last year I created the program called A Year of Spiritual Transformation. It's a systematic approach with 12 steps, beginning with the foundation of beliefs, then cultivating effective practices, and finally, focusing on transforming specific areas such as health, relationships, abundance, and living your soul purpose. This month, we are exploring the step, Transform Your Relationships and Health. In today's workshop, we will explore how to communicate with empathy, which is a key skill for creating heart-centered relationships. Here are 3 guidelines to help you make the most of today's event. First, be fully present and pay attention. Don't worry about taking notes. This presentation is on YouTube Live, so it is automatically recorded and accessible with the same link you are using now. Second, please do not post unnecessary comments in the chat because they become distracting. We have a Q&A session right after the workshop. And third, the resources discussed here are available on our website www.childrenofinfinity.org/recommendations. Let's get started with the workshop. For the first part, I have created a short video. It's only about 20 minutes long, but it has a lot of information. We will watch this video together and will do written exercises right after. Communication is the foundation of relationships. When communication is rooted in empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings and perspectives of others, it creates heart-centered connections, leading to harmony and joy. This video teaches how to cultivate the essential skill of empathetic communication. We will use a framework called Nonviolent Communication, or NVC for short, developed by the late psychologist Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. NVC allows us to express ourselves with honesty and clarity so that we can create relationships of mutual respect and genuine sharing. There are two aspects of empathetic communication: expressing with empathy and receiving with empathy. Let's explore each aspect.
Part 1. How to express yourself with empathy.
In the NVC framework, expressing yourself with empathy has 4 steps. These are: observe without judgment, express your feelings, focus on needs, and make positive requests. Let's explore each step.
Step 1. Observe people and actions without judgment.
The great philosopher Krishnamurti once said, "The ability to observe without judgment is the highest form of human intelligence." Judgment is deeply embedded in the way we think, which makes objective observation difficult. When we judge, we use labels to box people into stereotypes. We may classify people into good versus bad, normal versus abnormal, responsible versus irresponsible, smart versus ignorant, and so on. Further, when we think someone is bad, we want to punish them, because that's what we have been programmed to do. Judgment is a toxic way of thinking that dehumanizes people and sows the seeds of conflict and violence. In relationships, judgment prevents people from getting their needs met, which leads to frustration and relationship breakdown. Let's illustrate how judgment affects relationships with the example of a couple, Jim and Martha. Like all couples, their relationship has basic needs they need to fulfill. If Jim is conditioned to think with judgment, instead of focusing on how to fulfill their needs, he focuses on what's wrong with Martha. If Martha wants more affection than Jim is providing, he thinks Martha is needy and dependent. But if he wants more affection than she is giving him, then she's aloof and insensitive. If she is more concerned about details than him, she's picky and compulsive. If he's more concerned about details, though, then she is sloppy and disorganized. Even if Jim does not communicate these labels out loud, as long as he judges her, he sees Martha as a problem to be fixed. If Jim does not change this toxic way of thinking, it will destroy their relationship. If Jim wants to create a heart-centered connection with Martha, the first step would be to observe specific actions that are preventing him from getting his needs met, and express his concerns without the language of judgment, criticism, and blame, which are forms of evaluation.
Let's do a short exercise. Consider the statement, "You never do what I want." Rewrite the statement by applying the first step of NVC. Observe specific action and express your concern without evaluation. Pause the video now and unpause when you have finished writing.
So we will do our first exercise right now. This is a simple sentence. You never do what I want. I want you to rephrase this sentence in specific terms. So focus on what specific actions the other person might be doing that is preventing you from getting your needs met, and then express your concern without evaluation. So just get a pen and paper and write down a simple sentence which rephrases this by focusing on specific actions and expressing without evaluation. We'll take about 30 seconds, and after that, I'll give you what I think is one answer. If you want to share the sentence in the chat, feel free to put it in the chat.
Here is one possible statement. The last 3 times I have initiated an activity, you said you didn't want to do it. Step 2. Express your feelings.
Feelings are what make us human. When we allow ourselves to say that we are scared, or relieved, or delighted, we communicate at a level that touches people's hearts. Unfortunately, expressing our feelings is difficult because of 2 reasons. The first is that conditioning discourages us from expressing our feelings. Our society values the analytical, masculine side and suppresses the emotional, feminine side. Expressing our feelings requires us to be vulnerable, and we are taught to avoid vulnerability by not showing any emotions. This is especially true for men, who have been taught that to be tough, they need to be unemotional. The second reason we find it difficult to express feelings is because of the limitations of our language. Even when we use the word feel in a sentence, we may not be expressing feelings. For example, consider these sentences. I feel like a failure. I feel my partner is irresponsible. And I feel ignored. Even though the word feel is used, the speaker is not expressing a feeling in these sentences. The first sentence is expressing an opinion. The second is expressing an evaluation. The third is expressing an interpretation of the actions of others. Expressing our feelings requires us to use words that communicate in the shades of our emotions. When our needs are being met, we could say that we feel satisfied, pleased, glad, or grateful. When our needs are not being met, we could say that we feel afraid, ashamed, sad, or furious.
Let's do another exercise. Consider the statement, I feel I am terrible at the piano, which is an assessment of your ability. Rewrite the statement by applying the second step of NVC, express your feelings. Pause the video now and unpause when you have finished writing.
So let's do the second exercise. Look at this sentence. This is expressing an opinion, not a true feeling in terms of emotions. So rewrite this sentence where you are expressing your real emotions and communicate the emotion.
Here is one possible way. I feel disappointed because I can't play the Moonlight Sonata. Step 3. Acknowledge your needs.
The third step in NVC is to acknowledge the source of our feelings, our needs. When our needs are fulfilled, we have positive feelings. When our needs are not fulfilled, we have negative feelings. Some of our core needs are safety, physical nurturing, autonomy, respect, connection, honesty, integrity, and understanding. If we want to get our needs fulfilled, we first need to acknowledge them. Sadly, many of us don't even acknowledge our needs because of two reasons. The first is we feel guilty about focusing on our needs because we have learned that it is selfish to do so. In particular, women find it difficult to express their needs because our society associates the image of the ideal woman with the sacrifice of her needs to take care of others. Because of this conditioning, women often learn to ignore their needs. NVC encourages us to make a paradigm shift. See our needs not as inconveniences to others, but as gifts. All humans experience joy when they willingly fulfill other people's needs. Why not give people the gift of your needs? The second reason we don't acknowledge our needs is that we fail to own the cause of our feelings and blame our feelings on external agencies. One primary reason we blame others is that we confuse cause and stimulus. To illustrate the difference, consider the statement, "I feel angry because my boss is not sympathetic." If your boss is not sympathetic, that's not the cause of your anger. It's merely the stimulus. The cause is what you are doing in your head with the stimulus. A more accurate statement is, "I feel angry because I'm telling myself that my boss is not sympathetic." By owning that an unmet need is the cause of your feelings, not your boss, you can explore what need is not met and take action to meet it. When we learn to take responsibility for our feelings, we also begin to see that we are not responsible for the feelings of others. This doesn't mean that we become insensitive, but that ultimately, just as we are responsible for our feelings, others are responsible for theirs. By not being responsible for other people's feelings, we can meet their needs out of love and joy, not out of shame and guilt. Fulfilling needs out of shame and guilt creates resentment, which poisons the relationship. To summarize this step, express your needs without blaming others or yourself.
Let's do another exercise. Consider the statement, "I feel hurt because you didn't call on my birthday." Rewrite the statement by applying the third step of NVC, focus on your needs. Pause the video now and unpause when you have finished writing.
So take a look at this statement. Again, this attributes the cause of the hurt on the other person. Instead of that, rewrite the sentence where you focus on the need that was not met and rephrase it. So let's take about 30 seconds to write this down again.
Here is one possible way to restate. I feel hurt because my need to be valued was not met when you didn't call on my birthday. Step 4. Make positive requests.
The final step in NVC is to make positive and specific requests. We need to stop making vague or negative requests. When we say to our partner, "I want you to love me," what we are telling our partner is to read our minds and do everything that's required to meet our need for being loved. In other words, we are asking for the impossible. Similarly, when we say, "Don't spend so much time at work," we have communicated what we don't want, not what we do want. A positive request would be, "I would like you to spend at least one evening every week at home with me and the kids. In addition to being positive and specific, NVC requires that our requests not be made as demands. We are used to making demands when we talk to people under our authority, such as subordinates or children. A demand is a threat to comply or face punishment. When people hear a demand, they get triggered into a state of fear. They can either submit to the demand or rebel. In either case, the request is seen as coercive, and they respond from the instinct for self-preservation, not from compassion or joy. NVC makes an insightful distinction between requests and demands. It's not just about the choice of words or the tone that you use to make the request. You are making a demand when you intend to punish or blame if your request is not fulfilled. Consider the example of Jim and Martha. If Jim says to Martha, "Would you be willing to spend the evening with me?" Is that a request or a demand? The answer is, we don't know until we observe how Jim treats Martha if she doesn't comply. Suppose she replies, "Jim, I'm tired. If you'd like some company, how about asking your friends to be with you this evening?" If Jim gets upset, then he was making a demand. On the other hand, if he responds to Martha with a respectful recognition of her feelings and needs, then he was making a request. For example, Jim might respond with compassion and say, "Martha, you are feeling tired and need rest this evening. Is that correct?" When people do not agree to our requests, it does not mean that we give up on our needs. Instead, we can use their responses to get in touch with their feelings and needs. By maintaining empathetic understanding, we often discover alternate ways to fulfill each other's needs beyond the initial request. To summarize the steps in NVC, start with objective observations, focus on feelings and needs, and make positive requests.
Let's do a final exercise. Consider this request. I want you to stop drinking. It's a negative request that ignores any feelings or needs. Rewrite the statement by applying the steps of NVC. Make objective observations, focus on feelings and needs, and make positive requests. Pause the video now and unpause when you have finished writing.
Let's rewrite this sentence. Now, this sentence is just a negative sentence which makes a request but doesn't go into feelings or needs. So there's a lot of work to be done here. Let's take a minute, think about the 4 steps, make specific observations, go into feelings and needs, and then make a positive, specific request. So let's take a minute to rewrite this sentence in the language of NVC, and then we will come back. If you're done writing and if you want to share in the chat, you can put the sentence in the chat. I see something from Simone. That's a good one.
Here is one possible way to restate your request. Would you be willing to tell me what needs of yours are met by drinking and to discuss with me other ways of meeting those needs?
So far, we have explored the first aspect of empathetic communication, expressing yourself with empathy. Now, we turn to the second aspect, receiving with empathy.
Part 2: How to receive with empathy.
Receiving with empathy is about listening to what others are observing, feeling, needing, and requesting. Listening with empathy is a skill that takes effort. When we lack this skill, we respond in ways that block authentic communication. For example, let's say your daughter shares that she is experiencing some difficulty with her best friend. Responding with empathy requires that you do not,
Advise,
I think you should.
educate,
This could turn out to be a valuable experience if you just learn how to.
console,
It wasn't your fault. You did the best you could.
sympathize,
Oh, you poor thing.
tell a story,
That reminds me of the time when I was your age.
interrogate,
When did this begin?
correct,
That's not how it happened. The responses above are compulsive ways of needing to fix a situation and thereby making yourself feel better, rather than being present with what your daughter is sharing. An empathetic response could be, are you feeling disappointed that your need to connect with your friend is not being met? When we listen to others, we may find that they haven't made their needs and feelings clear. When that happens, empathetic communication requires us to make an effort to uncover their feelings. For example, if your partner says to you, "You never listen to me," this sounds like a blame, and your instinct is to invalidate it by saying, "That's not true." But what your partner probably wants to communicate is that his need to be heard is not being met. To explore the unmet need together, you can ask, "It sounds like you are frustrated because you would like to feel more connected when you speak with me. Is that correct?" Your willingness to acknowledge the other person's feelings and confirm that they have been heard strengthens your connection with them. Empathetic listening is a gift because it instantly releases tension and helps people relax and open up. To summarize, communicating with empathy can transform your relationships. You can learn more about empathetic communication from the book Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. To apply what we have learned in this video, let's do an exercise. The exercise has 5 steps. For each step, write down the answers and any insights. 1. What are your top 3 relationships that need more empathy? So we will now go into a detailed portion of the workshop. We are going to put together all the components that we learned, and we will answer these 5 questions. So to begin with, think about your top 3 relationships that need more empathy. These could be personal relationships, these could be friendships, or these could be professional relationships. We'll take about 30 seconds for you to think about those relationships and write them down. Whether personal or professional. 2. What needs of yours are not being met in each relationship? Let's focus on needs now. What specific needs of yours are not being met? Is it a need for connection, for empathy, for safety, and so on? Whatever needs are not being met in each relationship, write down the list of needs against each relationship. Let's take a minute to write this down. 3. Write statements to express your needs and make positive requests. Now, for each of the relationships, write down statements that express your needs, saying, this need is not being met, and then make positive requests from the other person so they can meet that need. Let's take a minute for this one. Four, set aside time to empathetically listen to the other person's needs. 5. Steps 4 and 5 are about taking specific actions to getting your needs met. And relationships are always give and take. You want to empathetically communicate your needs. At the same time, you want to empathetically listen to the other person's needs. So these two steps are about setting aside a time where you can have an empathetic communication, hear each other's needs, and then create a plan to meet each other's needs. So in your calendar, find a time where you want to do this, and if it's possible to communicate with the other person, set aside a common time that works for both of you. So with this, we are done with the workshop part. Empathetic communication is obviously a much bigger topic and it requires practice. So I encourage you to watch this video again and then do these exercises again till you get this habit right. So with that, let's move on to some announcements before you go into Q&A. So we talked about empathetic communication today, and let me talk about the main program, which is the steps to spiritual transformation. And as I talked about, these are specific steps. The point is to take them one by one, build on top of each other, so that you can experience a real breakthrough in the way you live your life. One thing I want to emphasize here, even more than the information, is the power of community. Because studies show that the best way to change your behavior is with a community. And what is a community? Very simply, a community is an ideological boundary where people within that boundary believe in one set of beliefs, and the people outside believe in a different set of beliefs. And this boundary helps divide the world into visitors versus outsiders. If you are a visitor, doesn't mean that you believe in everything that the community offers. However, you are open to getting more. If you are interested, then there is a path of membership where the community specifies what are the specific beliefs and practices that you need to engage in to move in the direction of that ideology. And lastly, a good community will also help you to develop your leadership, because you want to take from the community and also give back to the community in your way of service. So this program, which is a year of spiritual transformation, is offered in 2 flavors. The first is as a visitor. As a visitor, you have access to 2 lectures every month. They are on Sundays at 10 a.m., so it's always the same time. You also get access to a free online community. Now, it's suggested that you make a donation because all this effort costs money. However, the donation is not required. And you can take advantage of this community by going to our Mighty Network page, which is /YUST, which stands for Year of Spiritual Transformation. I'm going to post the link in the chat. For those of you who are interested, you can join the course and you can get access to the previous lectures. If you want to go deeper, you can also become a member. Members get access to not just the information and the lecture, but also assignments and a guided discussion for each lecture. So what we discussed today about empathetic communication will have a guided session 2 weeks from now where we will discuss these principles again and help people practice them better. Membership has exclusive events and also guidance in group settings. The other part of membership is this is a step to leadership, where you can learn more about how to lead people and help others. Now, membership comes with some commitments. The first commitment is the commitment to growth. Many people want results, but they don't want to commit to growth. And one is impossible without the other. The second commitment is to using your resources wisely. Our time on this planet is limited, and we cannot just squander our time and money on pointless things. The third is a commitment to service. Membership is not free. Membership requires an hourly earning due per month. What that means is if you make around $50,000 a year, you make $25 an hour, and that's the suggested donation for membership. I'll put the link to membership again at the end of the chat. You can still join the course with the same link as a member. Here are the next events that we have planned. So on August 12th, there's a program called 1000 Light Workers. As I said in the introduction, my mission is to create light workers on this planet. But what does it mean to be a light worker? So we will go into the philosophy of what it means to be a light worker, as well as what are the tools and practices that are needed to create light on this planet. Now, this is about, first of all, cultivating your own inner light, and then second, radiating that light out to help others. So this is a free program that we are introducing, and we will start with simple practices of raising your consciousness, including meditation, spiritual study, and avoiding toxicity. So on August 12th, we will go into the details of what the program is and what the resources are for you to take advantage of it. On August 13th, we have an event called Honor the Sacred Feminine. I touched on this a little bit today. Our civilization has become unbalanced in the sense it's too masculine and it doesn't honor the feminine. As a result of that, first of all, we have disempowered and suppressed women. And on the second hand, since we have suppressed the feminine principle, the whole civilization has become a machine without a heart. We are so focused on technological advancement, but we are very primitive when it comes to connecting with each other with compassion. And in this lecture, I'll talk about what is the sacred feminine principle and how we can honor that. On August 27th, there is an event on relationships, and this is specifically about moving from ego to love. These are the two core channels that we broadcast. Whenever we are broadcasting the channel of ego, it's all about what I want and how I can get what I want. The channel of love, on the other hand, focuses on something higher, which is about honoring each other in a relationship and making a relationship work for both people, not just about getting what I want. Lastly, September 17th is when we are starting the program. It's called Leadership for Light Workers. Those of you who want to be leaders will benefit from this program. And the reason we have this program is because the models of leadership that we have right now are not appropriate for taking humanity higher. Leadership as we understand it is mostly, as it's being taught right now, is just management. It's management of people by governments or corporations and all these egoic entities which want to expand at the cost of everything else. True leadership and true work of light is about working with compassion. It's about inspiring rather than managing. And we will go into the principles and practices of leading with light in that lecture. Let me put a link for the event page so you can RSVP for the events that you are interested in. Finally, the mission of Children of Infinity is to lead humanity from suffering to joy. And you can help in this mission by donating whatever you feel is appropriate. And the donations are tax deductible. Let me put a link for the donation. So with that, we are done with the workshop. Let's go to Q&A. If you have any questions, preface the question with the word question, and then you can ask the questions. Here's a question from Sally. I have a friend who I feel undervalues me. I try to address the problem, but it never works as she gets defensive. So it gets swept away each time. So this is the classic problem of miscommunication. That is, you want to get your needs met, but you might be communicating in a way where the other person either feels threatened or they don't understand your needs. So the goal is to communicate your needs, first of all, without blaming, just a very objective observation of what you are observing, then stating your needs and feelings and making a positive request. Now, as I said, if you make a positive request and the other person says, I can't do that, don't take no for an answer. Dig deeper. Ask the person, what are your needs and what do you feel? that because of which you are saying no to this request. If you keep going deeper, I think you can find a place where both of you can connect at the level of needs and help each other fulfill those needs. Any other questions? Question about the event on the 27th. The event on the 27th isn't appearing on the website for me, yet to be updated. Yes, so that event has not been published yet, but if you click on the events and RSVP for one of them, I think this week the event will be published. Going back to Sally's question, I meet her needs every time, but she does not meet mine. If your needs are not being met, the relationship fails to fulfill its basic purpose. And don't feel guilty about your needs. So again, try to positively state your needs and make a positive request and see how it goes. Any other questions? Again, if you have a question, preface the question with the word question so that I know it's a question, not a statement. Question from Banda. How do I respond, or how this applies in a business manner when we as landlords need to follow rules, regulations, and laws as in landlord-tenant? Again, set very clear expectations of what the other party is supposed to do. And don't threaten or don't use negative language. In positive language, state your needs very clearly, that to comply with this law, I need you to do this. Will you be willing to do these things? Next question. What do you do if you express your needs, but it's met with, well, you don't? Again, it's always about communicating your needs in a very positive and specific way, which does not trigger the other person's ego. If you make specific observations and positive requests, typically people don't go to the ego path. But even if they do, don't stop there. Go deeper and ask them, what needs of yours are not being met that I can help meet? For those of you who are interested in becoming members, let me put the link which goes into what membership is about and how to become a member. 1 second. So I put the link for our community page. If you scroll down at the end, there is information about membership and how to become a member. Question from Tim. If the other person responds defensively often, and we are not supposed to educate them, is it possible we are just not the match vibrationally? It's possible. Again, the purpose of the relationship is to meet each person's needs. If for whatever reason the relationship does not meet the needs, then it's not functioning properly. And sometimes all you can do is to walk away because the other person is unwilling to change. Question from Ektarin. Do you think it's worthy to be patient with extremely wounded people, the ones who can't be vulnerable or open? It's about reaching that place of gentleness where people who have been wounded feel open around you. Now, this is hard to do because the other person might be so wounded that they just don't want to open up. And it takes time to develop that trust. But if you stay with the process, eventually they can connect with you at the level of the heart. And that's where things begin to change. Question from Marlene. If we are retired and have Social Security only as income, what amount would we donate? So we have some people who are retired. It's whatever you make per year, divide that by 2,000 to get your hourly earnings. So, for example, if you just make $25,000 a year, that would come to about $12.50 per hour. And that becomes the donation. Question from Dorothy. How do I become a better friend to someone who's unable or unwilling to express their needs? So people need to be educated. As I said, many people have been hurt because they have been made to feel guilty about their needs. And they have learned to shut down and they don't express their needs. It doesn't mean they don't have needs. And it's the gentle guiding where you can let the other person know that it's okay to express their needs. And sometimes they may need a little bit more guidance. Question from Naima. Can you provide greater clarification on the example you provided for number 3? I feel angry because I'm telling myself. So again, the cause of our feelings is always within. In our language, we tell ourselves that if a person does something, we feel a certain way. So the example was, I feel angry because my boss is not sympathetic. The moment we begin to shift the ownership from the boss to ourselves, that I feel angry not because my boss is not sympathetic, I feel angry because I am telling myself that my boss is not sympathetic, it puts the focus back onto us. That it's what's happening inside my own brain that's causing that anger. And then I can actually do something about it. The things that I can do, for example, one is I can find out what needs of mine are not being met and have a conversation with my boss about how those needs could be met. The other thing I could do is to stop telling myself that my boss is unsympathetic. It might just be a projection of my own mind where I interpret one of the actions of my boss and tell myself that this is what the boss is doing. That may not be true. Or the other thing I can do is I can change the situation and find a different job. But again, it starts with taking ownership of what I feel. Question from Sion. Sometimes I feel a little bit slow at understanding non-verbal cues of what people expect of me. How can I become better at understanding people's needs without ignoring my own needs? This is again, the point of communication is to go deeper and not just stay at the surface. As the example said here, when somebody tells you, you don't listen to me, they are not communicating their needs, and it's our job to dig deeper and find out what needs of theirs are not being met. So if you are with a person and you don't understand what they expect of you, ask them, what needs of yours would you like to be fulfilled in this relationship, in this friendship, or whatever it is? Now, we feel strange talking about these things because we think these things are too emotional and too woo-woo or whatever. But if we do not take the responsibility of connecting with the other person at the level of the heart, how else are we expected to connect with them? So it may sound strange because you are not familiar with this way of working, but this is very natural once it becomes habit. Question from Brenda. My sister has given up mentally and physically. How do I approach and support her in her decision by listening empathetically? Yes, sometimes people just need to be heard, even when they are at a very desperate situation in their life. Your listening is a gift. And sometimes all it takes is listening, and the other person is able to move on because they believe again in the goodness of being alive. So, connecting with them at an emotional and empathetic level is the way to heal them. Question from Jerry. How do you get through to a partner who is depressed, angry all the time? I've tried this type of communication and the patterns continue. Don't give up. And again, the first job of empathetic communication is to not give a hint of blame to the other person, because people shut down the moment they see blame. Make specific observations and make positive requests. Question. I'm in an interracial relationship. When issues arise, I'm told I cannot understand as I'm not of that race. The other person obviously has a way of thinking where they believe that you cannot empathetically understand what they are saying. Now, if you were able to connect with them at a level where they did understand that it is possible to connect, even when you don't come from the same race, that can happen. It does take a lot of trust and communication on your part. But again, it's about if you start connecting with them at smaller scale and trying to understand. And again, if you go into their needs, we have all basic human needs. For example, the need to be valued. Regardless of the race, we all want to be valued. So start connecting with the needs that at least you can agree on right now, and ask the other person, what are the needs that you have that I can fulfill? Over a period of time, people open up and they can see that it's worth and it's possible connecting with you. Question from Joseph. How do I talk to someone and do things with a friend who I enjoy being around, but they are depressed and negative all the time? This goes back to the last example that was there, where if they are depressed and negative, have an honest conversation about, I observed these 3 things in the past. I would like to have a conversation about what needs of yours are met by being negative, and if there are other ways of meeting these needs. Now, this can, if you don't put it in the positive way, it can trigger the other person. So it's be very gentle and make sure you put them in a positive way with understanding. And if you do that, it will help open up the other person and examine their behavior. Now, it's not that they don't know about their behavior. They probably do. But you need to create a space where they can say, okay, I'm willing to change because I feel connected with another person. Question from Chrissy. For difficult people in our lives, if substances or other addictions are an issue, I think the approach needs to consider that. False emotions are rife with addictions. I agree. Sometimes if people are, especially with substance abuse, people get to this very low state of consciousness where nothing of higher consciousness seems to get through. However, our responsibility to hold on to hope and not reflect that state of victimhood back to them. We have to believe in people even when they don't believe in themselves. So be gentle, be positive, and be specific, even when you communicate with people who seem to be completely closed. We have a few minutes more as the time is almost up. If there are any final questions, I'll be happy to answer. There was a feedback to the session host. My experience shows not everyone would treat or respond to honest, empathetic communication. Instead, they regard you as stupid. That's possible. However, there's a lot of judgment, and not just judgment in your thinking. There could be a lot of judgment in the other person. We have to get past the judgment to connect with people. And it's not easy, but we have to make the attempt, and we have to take an approach which helps people go beyond the judgment. Question from Ryan. It's hard for me to think of my problems or desires as needs, and even harder to communicate to people. I have been programmed to speak or think quickly, and NVC is so hard for me to communicate. Is there anything I can do to learn this kind of communication? I have read the book. Again, yes, this is hard because our conditioning prevents us from acknowledging our needs and taking positive action to fulfill them. I would encourage you to take out an hour out of your time, sit with just a pen and paper by yourself, and think about what are your needs that are not being met. If you would allow yourself to write this way without interruption, without distraction, the inner self will help you come up with the needs that you have, and then also come up with a plan to communicate those needs to other people. Question from Brenda, say that again. We have to believe in people. The statement was, we have to believe in people even when they don't believe in themselves. Lastly, for the link, actually the same link that you are using right now will be available for later viewing for a recorded version. So as soon as we are done with this workshop in about few minutes, after that you can click on the link and it will take you to a recorded presentation. A lesson will also be available on Mighty Network website. So the link that I posted, let me post it once again. In a few days, there'll be a lesson available with exercises on the course page. Oh, sorry, not this one. That's the lesson page. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks where we will talk about how to become a light worker. Thank you so much, and have a great day.